All right, I'm here to talk today about hunting in Germany and what it takes to go hunting. So, overall, hunting in Germany is amazing. I mean, it's world class. I grew up in hunting in Texas my whole life, and I have to say that hunting in Germany is hands down 10 times better. And it goes completely against preconceived notions of what living in Europe is like. But believe it or not, hunting is a lot more accessible. It's a lot more uh, enjoyable in the sense that there's so many different methods of hunting, um, and overall, it's just a good experience. Very neat, very exciting in the sense that you're experiencing a whole other culture, and they have a very strong tradition and heritage of hunting here. It's not just go to Walmart, buy a hunting license, pick up a $300 rifle, and then hit a deer stand somewhere after you pay $3,000 for a deer lease or something. It is it is it's a tradition, a heritage, very honorable in the sense of the practices and the humaneness of it, and it's really a lot of history tied into it. So it's amazing. It's one of the neatest things I've ever done. So as far as like the overall process, it's pretty straightforward. It's very sequential. So as long as you follow the right steps, you shouldn't have any major issues. The first thing is, in order to get your hunting license, also known as your Jagdschein, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to contact your rod and gun club, right? So I live in the Kaiserslautern area. I'm stationed at Ramstein Air Base. So I went to the Kaiserslautern Rod and Gun Club. Um, Kaiserslautern has a rod and gun club. The Baumholder area has a rod and gun club. The Wiesbaden area has a rod and gun club. And I'm going to take a guess. I'm assuming that also, as far as Spangdahlem and Garmisch, they likely have rod and gun clubs as well as Stuttgart. So they're all big, large military communities here in Germany. Wiesbaden and Baumholder are they're pretty large. Baumholder being a little smaller, but Kaiserslautern, no doubt it's gigantic. So the KMC area is really big, and the rod and gun club here is pretty well established and actually pretty well known to the Germans as well. So that being said, the first thing you do is you contact the Rod and Gun Club, and you register for one of their courses, their hunter course. I think it's called a hunter safety course. In any case, it's a requirement. It's not a nice to have by any means. So there's a SOFA agreement here in Germany that if you're a DoD employee or a government employee or citizen here under the Status of Forces agreement, you can actually get a hunting license through their own program. And so they translate everything in English. They give you a test in English, and then you officially become a Jäger or a hunter here in Germany. So you'll get your Jagdschein, which is a little booklet here, very official, right? The Germans are very process specific and very much to the liking of anything you can stamp, and this is a perfect example. So my Jagdschein is, here you go. This is what it looks like. It's very simple, not too fancy, but with this Jagdschein, I can actually go and purchase a firearm, and then I can go hunting. But it's not that simple. For the most part, I now have the ability to use a firearm, purchase a firearm, and then the next step for long term is to get a Waffen Besitzt card, which is here. And I'm not going to show you the front cover because there's some PII on here. But once I get my WBK weapon owner's card, then I can have the firearm in my possession, buy a safe and keep it at my home or whatever. If you live in the dorms or the barracks, you can actually keep it in the Rod and Gun Club. Some of them, they have storage, or you can keep it at a friend or hunter's house that has the approved safe, and you just you make a letter agreement. It's very simple. I wouldn't recommend keeping your firearm at the armory. The policy has changed, and it's extremely ridiculously impossibly difficult to keep your guns in the armory, at least over here. I don't know what the situation is in the United States. So again, take the hunter safety course, learn about the anatomy of the deer, the different species of animals that you can hunt, learn about the tradition, the Jagdsprache, which is like the German language, dialect that they use for hunting, learn about all the intricacies about the seasons and all the different things. And then you'll take a test. It's a written test. It's not too hard. The course is usually about 2 months long, give or take, because there's different varieties of how they do the course. You know, mine was on the weekends, so it was out a little bit longer. I also took mine during COVID, the first lockdown. That stretched out a little bit, and then we took the course, the end of course test, and then I got my Jagdschein. I then took it down to the city or the county or the state office. I registered with them, and then I became an officiated hunter, or in all regard. And then from there, I was able to get my Jagdschein, and I went down to the Forstamt, which is basically the forest office. So every area has a forest office, and depending on where you live, you just go down there to the Forstamt, and you request to see what land they have available. Now, the leasing of the land here is based off of the hunting season. Now, the funny thing is, you can hunt every single day of the year here. And because they have so many different species, off the top of my head, I count about 7 different medium, large game species that you can actually hunt. And that means like deer and boar, and there's actually a big variety of deer that you can hunt here, surprisingly. A lot more than you can find in the United States, surprisingly. Yeah, so it starts on April 1st, so you need to work with that deadline, and then you'll go to that Forstamt and you say, hey, I'd like to get a revier or a lease. And they'll contact you with a peshta, which is like kind of like a forest ranger, lease kind of owner. And they own this, they'll manage the property from the government, right? And you'll pick an area, to your convenience, but more than likely it's going to be where you live in that general vicinity, right? So I actually live like 8 minutes from here on my revier, and I can go after work, I can go early in the morning, I can hunt at night, all those different things, and it's just a lot more convenient and a lot more accessible. So then, because I'm only leasing from the state and not from a private owner, private landowner, it's very affordable. It's not competitive to buy the land or to own the land for the year or own hunting rights to the land. And so you'll go to that peshter and they'll give you, the rules of the road for hunting, because it's based on biological studies of the game. And so like this particular property that I have rights to, or this revier that I can hunt on, I'm the only person on here. It's about 210 acres. They measure everything in hectares. And I can come out here 364 days a year. I don't know for sure because I was told that you can't hunt on Christmas Day. And then because of the different variety of game that stretch out throughout the year and their different breeding seasons or hunting seasons, I can literally hunt like every day of that year, of that specific year that I paid for. I only paid about 400 euros for this 210 acres, and it's exclusively mine, which is really unbeatable and unheard of in the United States. I know in Texas, to have a lease in South Texas or somewhere in the hill country, I mean, you're going to spend $5,000 easy. I think that's probably conservative. I couldn't imagine what it costs now. And that's going to be, you're going to be very limited in how often you can hunt. You're going to hunt 2 months out of the year as far as white-tailed deer, but here there's just a lot. There's a lot of opportunity. The other thing is there's different types of hunting here. So they do the Drukjagd, which is a drive hunt. I've been invited to them. The Germans are pretty hospitable to us being here, and I think it's probably because maybe it's not something that's being passed down as frequently. So that's definitely why I encourage Americans that get to come out here and like hunting to really try to experience this, because it's a good, it builds a lot of camaraderie with that group of people here in the area. And so I know I have a few German hunting friends now for this reason. There's also collective hunting, so they'll have a big piece of land and everyone will be invited out. I got invited to one of those before I even had my own revier. So you don't have to have a revier to hunt again, right? So there's plenty of opportunity. Additionally, you can sit in a stand, which is what I'm here next to. And then they also have stalking, like you might be probably not used to in the United States because it's not that common, more common here in Europe. But that comes with time. You have to be an experienced hunter for safety reasons, right? But yeah, all in all, it's more than you might imagine. Some other interesting things is you can actually hunt at night. So you can hunt boar and fox at night. You can use night vision or thermal to do that. And again, if you look at my gun video, you can use suppressors, something you wouldn't have expected, something that's not, all over the United States acceptable. Again, there are just some other things like the amount of game. So one of the interesting things, and I'll cover this in another video one day, is all the different species. A lot of these species aren't native, but it's kind of a moot point because their presence here is over 2,000 years old. Some of the species of large game that we see here, and they've become, integrated into the biosphere. They were actually brought over by the Romans. It's just interesting things like that make this place, really, really neat. And I actually got my hunting course done in COVID lockdowns, which I thought was really difficult. And the reason why I bring that up is because it's really affordable too. So I mentioned some numbers earlier. During the COVID lockdowns, when everything else was shut down, when all the restaurants, all the traveling, you couldn't even leave your state, or your county even, unless you were traveling for work. Amidst all that, hunting was considered an essential activity, and it was one of the few things you could do. There's a lot of tradition and honor that goes into hunting here. It's not just a sport; it's a culture, a heritage, and it varies. And learning about it is really interesting, and it's really like an honor that as Americans that the Germans allow us to do it, because it's when you take the course, you'll learn so much history about they've been doing this for a long time, and it goes back to this being the king's land, and the people were not allowed to hunt. And when you look at that and you dissect it, you're like, man, it's pretty neat. It doesn't have the same romanticism that we have about the pioneers in the United States, and the frontier and hunting to survive and all that. There's definitely some hunting to survive, but it was essentially outlawed. And so the Germans, along with I'm sure a lot of different people in Europe, they hunted basically under the radar, and so it developed its own culture. It was a subculture on the fringe, and you couldn't speak about it in the open. Therefore, they came out with the Jagsprache, so the hunting language. So all in all, definitely if you have time and you're a hunter, I can tell you, you won't regret this experience. It's amazing. They're very hospitable to us as Americans. It's I personally see it as a dying sport, with everything going on. I don't meet a lot of young airmen. I'm not necessarily young. I'm in my late 30s, but I don't meet a lot of young airmen that come here and have any real desire to go hunting, which is a shame because this opportunity is priceless. And I encourage people to get out there and do it because it's easy. It's not as difficult as you might think it might be. It's not as expensive as you might think it might be. And it's definitely not, it's not impossible. So get out there, and if you like deer, if you like boar, if you like being outdoors in nature, there's no better place. So as they say in Germany, Weidmannsheil.